Buckle up for AEC Trailblazers, the Founders Files, where we crack open the stories of the brightest minds in the AEC startup scene. Forget institutional pitches. We're diving deep into the real personal journeys of these industry disruptors. Get ready for some casual chats firsthand.
Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of the AEC Trailblazers podcast, where we interview the most amazing founders from the tech scene of the AEC. Today with us, we have Tim Sperry. He's the founder and CEO of Carbon Limit, where he has spearheaded the development of pioneering negative emission and carbon capture technologies. He's a dedicated inventor and entrepreneur who led his company to create the world's first patented CO2 capturing concrete, CaptureCrete, and surface cooling concrete additive, CoolCrete, which has revolutionized sustainable infrastructure. Tim is renowned for his ability to cultivate innovative teams and build businesses that have a substantial positive impact on the planet. His unwavering commitment to environmental innovation has not only inspired industry peers, but also earned Carbon Limit the prestigious title of Greenpeace Climate Tech Company of the Year at Birch 23 in 2023. Tim continues to drive his team towards achieving a more sustainable future. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. Thanks for the nice intro. I appreciate it.
Man, it's impressive all you have done.
The part about cultivating a good team and a great team that helps a lot. That helps a lot. So yeah, it's been really exciting, especially with the landscapes changing as they have prior to us starting the company, as we're developing and even now. So it's been really exciting.
Cool. Yeah. No, I'm not gonna throw some spoilers here. So let's start from the beginning first. Like, what took you into construction first? Even before Carbon Limit, how you ended up in the construction industry?
So I ended up in the construction industry kind of with my previous climate tech company, and which was a company called Smog Armor. We created a air purifying paint, effectively a paint with these active minerals that allowed architectural paints, inside a home, exterior or outside of a building, to absorb and attract and absorb VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, effectively the chemicals that off gas and some of the toxins in the air. And really, it came out of the need for me to want to try to find solutions to air pollution at that time. So it was really as a result of the technology I was trying to develop. I wasn't really part of that industry, but it just became the vehicle as which my technology fit into. And same thing with Carbon Limit. Carbon Limit, we actually initially developed a direct air capture machine, which was meant to capture CO2 from the air inside these retrofitted shipping containers. And then a pivot actually took the material out of the containers and we reformulated it to be a cement replacement or an additive to concrete, which brought me back into and directly into this industry where we are now, construction and concrete. So it was really just based on what vehicle worked and how it aligned well and just was good market fit.
I have a big respect for people who develop stuff that it's physical things on the industry, right? Because I do feel I'm an architect, right? So my background is more about design, pre-drawings, and that's much more simple, right? Because it's just something in a computer. There's no risk, and you don't have to produce anything in terms of like real stuff, right? It's going to be later on the construction phase, right?
Yeah.
How do you decide, or how easy or how difficult it is to, for example, when you develop that paint, right? You decide, like, I don't know anything about chemistry, for example. How in the hell you start doing something like that?
Initially from Google Scholar. So I taught myself, one thing I didn't realize, 10,000 hours of Google Scholar, I say, which is effectively now that can be done with maybe a couple hundred hours of ChatGPT. So things have certainly gotten better. But actually, when I created that initially, I called a bunch of paint manufacturers, and most of them didn't give me the time of day until finally one did. And they said, sure, sure, sure. This sounds interesting. And I could tell they weren't terribly interested. Anyways, but they're like, yeah, just have your paint chemist contact us. And I was like, huh, paint chemist. I was like, shit, I need one of those now too. So, so certainly, the way I kind of view things is I don't know what I can't do, so I just do anything. And I find the right people to surround myself with to help me get there. So it's really just trying to take perceived obstacles and just crush them with the right team and crush them with the right people. I like to invent things. As a kid, I always remember getting Lego sets and then just scrambling them all together and just creating my own stuff. And like I think that's kind of where that creative bug came in. Is I always like to create my own stuff. I built my own like slingshots and little warfare toys and other things as I was a kid. Like I always developed just really interesting stuff and just always been bit by that creative bug to invent stuff. So um, now it's easier to figure out all you need from, type of chemist to the type of material scientist to the type of materials to the type of labs to the type of ASTM testing, which this crowd might be more familiar with. So it's really been an exciting journey, especially with the technology improving and helping really, I think I would say anyone with a viable idea to become a viable inventor.
I mean, you make it sound so easy.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a structure guy. I'm a geek, and if you tell me to manage something, I would first learn how to do it and then go for it, because otherwise, I don't know, I would be in pain managing someone that knows more than me. I don't know, but how it was for you, that I don't know, the first paint chemist that you hired, then I guess you hire people that are really good and you have to trust them, and how
Yeah,
process.
that's pretty much the case. You just in a lot of cases you really have to hope for the best. And I think I might have a skewed perception of it because being in climate tech companies and having kind of a mission driven company, you're attracting people that are in line with that aren't all just necessarily there for a paycheck, that aren't necessarily there just to, maybe try to, make it, be one step ahead of you, but maybe not good enough or smart enough to help lead you down the right path. So I think I might have been lucky. And certainly as we've grown Carbon Limit and gone from startup into this scale up mode, there's a lot of turbulence and changes and, taking folks that you thought were the best at one thing and needing to replace them with someone that's better. And that's certainly been a huge eye-opening experience and something that's not easy to deal with as a founder or someone that's emotionally connected to your partners, employees, people that work with you. So that's been a big lesson and a big challenge.
No, absolutely. I think uh, it's never easy. It's never easy, even when the person might be a great person, they might have a great talent, but they might not be at the right position at the right time of the company. They might be too early, they might be too late, and it's so hard to explain that to people. Nobody wants to hear that, right? Even if you know it, you don't want to hear that from your boss that, hey, you cannot fit here because you're meant for a different time of the company or for different company. Yeah, it's hard. But you also bring something that for me it's really interesting, that when you have a company that cares about something like, yeah, like the environment, for example, is people are attracted to be in your company, not only because of a paycheck, but because they actually believe on that they're going good for the planet. And I think that's really interesting. But would you how would you say, if do you think the same happens with clients as well, that are clients trying to buy your product not necessarily carbon limit. It can be from your previous company. I don't want to compromise you or say any names, but do you feel that that also happens with clients, or only with people that works at your company?
So with clients, it's a coin toss because some of them, they're very much engaged in it and they're actually trying to rally their companies around it. Maybe this is the sustainability director, maybe this is, someone that heads R&D, which is, the people we interface with cement and concrete companies and producers. But a lot of times it's a customer driven demand. We have companies reach out to us and they're like, our customers still keep asking about resiliency, sustainability, lower carbon footprint offerings. We don't have any, we need some. And in those cases, it's really brought out of that demand from that customer driven side. So we do see it from both sides. It's exciting and better and a better process when it's the actual customer for us, the cement or concrete producer, that's very excited about it because then the process is very easy and very clean. When it's not them, it's just, it gets a little sticky sometimes, but it still ends up ultimately being good for everybody.
Yeah, interesting. No, I bet you prefer the clients who are extremely engaged and not the ones that are doing it because a mandate or something like that.
Yeah.
So no, absolutely, absolutely. That makes sense. And what about you spoke about like producers, but what about like owners, for example? Do you see that in owners as well, like transcending on owners being more a constant, like thinking more of hey, we need to be more environment friendly, or it's a trend you don't see yet?
Oh, it's a trend we're definitely seeing. Before 2023, 2024, we traveled pretty much all around the world, and we saw probably more interest in Europe and Middle East that were really forward about, when it comes to owners that wanted to ensure there was sustainability there. But we've also experienced it here. We've got a great home developer we've been working with here. They're very bullish and very much so invested and engaged in deploying sustainable solutions into their projects, whether it's, the CaptureCrete into sidewalks or just low risk projects that they can start to get their feet wet with and start to integrate into their products and convey them to their customers. This specific home developer, they're very much so the interested party, but then their customers, their buyers that are looking to buy their homes are also I think you said it too, this generation today is definitely more interested in doing something that's good for the planet, good for society, than it's just for the biggest paycheck that they can get. They'd rather balance out, hey, let's get a good enough paycheck and let's do something that we can feel good about. And I think that's that Gen Z, Gen Y customer that's buying these new homes for this home developer and even others that are at least interested in having some role in being sustainable without a heavy lift.
Oh, for sure. I think it's something that our generation is caring more about, and I'm not saying that the past generations are bad, but the same is going to happen to us in 3-4 more generations. We're going to say things to us. It's like, hey, you were insane. Why were you not environmental friendly, or why were you cooking this way or doing that or whatever? Like,
Exactly.
it's happen. It's a process. So it's extremely interesting. And also the fact that you said that in Europe, and you surprised me with Middle East, to be honest, when you said Middle East.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know they were that conscious about. Maybe it's just, I don't know. But what do you think that's happening that in the US is not as happening as much as in Europe or Middle East?
So I think in the US, it's more dollar driven. What's the best price? How can we deliver the best product for the lowest price as we're going through the bidding process? The mandates aren't as strict. In Europe, there's, I think there's just more mandates. There's more accountability. And then when the Middle East, and I'm speaking more about like Dubai and Saudi Arabia, as we've been to Dubai a bunch of times and also into Riyadh for Saudi Arabia. And, Saudi Arabia's got their 2030 vision where everything is really more sustainable and just more harmony with nature and with society. And then Dubai is just kind of the leader, and well, I think that's transferring now a little bit more to Saudi Arabia, but developing crazy buildings, developing with sustainability, with zero waste desal, and all these really interesting technologies that they're willing to maybe be early adopters. Whereas in the US, we have so many standards and regulations. I think that early adopter piece maybe just takes a little bit longer here. Um, we were really in a great position because Google was our first customer, our first like commercial customer. We did a project with the Department of Transportation. We had some really cool customers that we would deem early adopters, and those really helped us, get the wheel spinning and help other customers feel comfortable, and other prospective customers look at us like, okay, well, we've got a project down, and no one wants to be first. So if you can get those first, and I think that's what we see a little bit more in the Middle East is sometimes they will be those early adopters that really help.
That makes sense. Uh, I do eventually think that the US is gonna adapt to that. Like and again, like you said, I think it's unfair to just say the US because I feel there are some states there that really care about these kind of things. Also, others are lagging a little bit behind, um, but I think it eventually is going to happen. And I always compare it with beam technology. I don't know if you're aware of it, but it's just a technology process that there are no governmental mandates, but the US is the country which uses most beam technology in the whole world, and it's because owners are pushing for it because they see the benefits. And I think that's going to change eventually for owners as well, where they see more benefits of, and not only because, let's say, they don't care about the planet. Consumers do care a lot about buying or renting in places that care about the planet. So I think they're going to be obliged to that, and they're going to push the change forward. But it's just me thinking on a theory. Might or might not happen.
No, no, I think you're onto something there, and yeah, and I think too, like there's definitely that customer piece that they want to be able to do something where they can contribute, and if you can give them the opportunity. And here, I think it's if we have those incentives as well as those regulations and the customer driven demand, we really have that perfect intersection of being able to bring these things to market. When we first started Carbon Limit with our CaptureCrete technology, it was our first technology. Back in 2021, we created our commercial MVP. Um, no one cared. No one was interested. There was like no mandates to have more sustainable cement or concrete. Customer driven demand was really minimal, outside of kind of some big tech. And then there was almost no incentives. So at that point, no one was really interested in talking to because none of those things aligned. And there was, of course, your early adopter category, but outside of that, they needed the incentives, they needed the standards to catch up a little bit too. And then they also needed some customer driven demand. And now that's really promoting something that, look, we're working to put new sustainable technology that's in the time scale of construction, cement and concrete, like this old, like just brand new effectively, into an industry that is super legacy and generally moves at a glacial pace when it comes to innovation because they don't want to take a risk. I think, your customer, I think most of your listeners understanding of, let's not take these inherent risks if we don't need to, unless it's deemed necessary. And I think that just became the case as we started to develop and grow, is we were kind of in the right place at the right time for the intersection of these things to happen, to build that appetite of people starting to utilize the technology and people really starting to want to adopt these technologies.
I think we froze for a little second.
I think we did too. Yeah.
Okay. So I lost you on appetite. I don't know if you've
Oh,
finished the phrase. If you finish the phrase, we can just take on from
appetite.
there.
I think I did. I think it was adoption appetite or appetite for adopting these technologies. I think it was a appetite for adopting these technologies. Yeah.
Okay. We
Yeah,
Yeah,
we could cut off that part too, and you can just cut off the appetite because them, the
okay.
previous sentence was the same thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. But now that you brought a pretty valuable point, and for me, I don't get it because, like, for example, cars, right? That we're trying to make electrical cars,
So,
electrification. We're trying to make like renewables, right? Like wind and solar, and we're caring about the biggest pollutants in the world, right? And we know construction and specifically cement and concrete are one of the biggest pollutants in the world. Why? Well, I know you're doing something now, but for me, it's just insane that there are not a lot of people trying to solve this, and there are a lot of people trying to solve all the industries that are as big or even sometimes less pollutants than concrete. So why do you think that's happening? And I cannot believe people were not willing to listen to you or meet with you when you were trying to build this.
yeah, I think it has a lot to do with like ASTM standards not being able to keep up with the pace of innovation. And if you can't slap your 365-day results for ASTM testing that you've done with your technology, it's again risky. So I think it is that whole risk factor. And also a lot of these companies, they just see this, if we're talking about like vertically integrated producers or, just concrete producers, they are a real volume game. So if there's anything that's disrupting the volume of concrete that they can pump out or cement that they can pump out, for them it's just getting in the way. And unless it affects their bottom line, they're really not interested. So I think that was kind of the initial reason why no one was interested in talking to us. I mean, they did, but we could tell they weren't interested. And then the Global Cement and Concrete Association actually in October of 2021 made a commitment to reduce 25% of carbon footprint by 2030 and go to net zero by 2050. As soon as that happened, all of those conversations changed. So that whole, in most of the Global Cement and Concrete Association is a huge organization that most of the largest producers and mid-sized producers and even some of the small producers are a part of. So they really kind of rally around, hey, this is what the industry is requiring now. And also it becomes a competitive landscape then too, to say, okay, well, your competitor is offering this. I can differentiate myself. I can't differentiate myself now. They've differentiated themselves by offering the sustainable solution. So I just lost this next bid. And I think companies were starting to see, and we've even heard that before too. They're like, look, if we don't have a sustainable solution, we're losing the bids. We don't get the same bids we were getting before. So it just became a necessity at that point. So just really, again, that whole kind of paradigm shift happened in a really short period of time, which was great for us, and just kind of challenging for the logistical side of things and the standards. But it just made at least this landscape really exciting for a company like ours.
Interesting. And I think all that circles back to, again, consumers and owners requiring this. Because in the end, I think it's the same what happened with cars, right? Cars, I'm convinced that people start producing electrical cars because consumers wanted electrical cars, not because someone had the brilliant idea of just doing it. And then I think there was a market for it, and I do think that now buyers are more conscious, of this. And I think that's a really good comparison between the US and in Europe, where here in the US you have multi-families, right? And that changes it all because you have a big owner just buying stuff, compared to Europe that you don't have these big corporations just buying whole building, but more of like investors who buy a condo or something like that. So I think that changes it all in terms of why consumers are requiring one thing and the other in the US. But
Hmm.
again, just another theory of the differences between one and the other. But switching gears a little bit I'm just excited to speak about the process and learn more about which of the two products we want to start with, speak about.
Uh, sure. I mean, I'll start with CaptureCrete. It's our initial technology. We're effectively created an admix, and an SEM, which are additives for concrete that help improve the performance of the concrete. So we're using natural pozzolans mixed with a special catalyst that when you add them to concrete, new concrete, it actually increases the strength. It helps keep the other performances the same or even better. And then what's really unique is that it increases the amount of carbon that's actively absorbed into the concrete and then mineralized, which turns into a solid mineral into the concrete, again, making it stronger, helping reduce chemical intrusion and making the concrete last longer. So we see kind of a big value proposition. We are really excited about its ability to absorb CO2 actively and in increasing the amount of CO2 that's absorbed into concrete compared to traditional concrete that passively absorbs CO2 with precipitation. And then, it's a really slow process and it, doesn't capture that much CO2. Over time, it ends up stopping. And we were really excited about the prospect. Okay, look, we can help capture CO2. We can actually also reduce the amount of cement that goes in there because it increases that performance as well. So that reduction in cement can help the customers save money. But then when you're capturing CO2 and reducing the cement, it can generate carbon credits. I don't know, the industry for cement and concrete's not too forward. So the carbon credit whole concept is challenging for most of them to understand. But the way we frame it is that, look, every time you use and put CaptureCrete into your concrete, it captures CO2, reduces the amount of cement. It can generate carbon credits, which we will sell to, Microsoft, Meta, a company that's buying carbon credits for their purposes of reducing their company's carbon footprint. That gives us money and we share the money with you. So we created like a revenue sharing thing, which I think is a big, it's a big draw for the customers to say, okay, well, if we can create this opportunity where we can help you save a little bit of money and make money by adding something to your concrete and you can, show that it's sustainable at the same time, it's kind of a win-win-win. So our business model is helping our customers create the sustainable concrete with either cost neutrality or even potentially a financial return for every cubic yard of concrete that they're producing or every concrete tile that they're producing. And it's exciting for us because we're helping decarbonize the industry, and it's exciting for them because they can differentiate themselves. They can have a sustainable offering and then either, break, cost neutral or even earn additional revenues and additional profits as a result of our revenue share process.
Yeah, even just cost neutral makes a lot of sense because it's like,
Yep.
hey, it's gonna cost the same, but then I have the advantage of being able to add this as a quality as a property of my building, and people might pay more or be willing to buy this property and not the property across the street. So
Exactly.
it makes a lot of sense. I'm just curious on a technical level, like CarbonCrete is gonna like absorb carbon for 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, 1,000 years. How long is gonna absorb concrete?
Yeah. So with CaptureCrete, it generally captures a majority of the CO2, the ambient CO2 from the air over the first year, and then it just kind of tears down. So it reduces the amount that it'll capture past that. If we're using CaptureCrete into more porous products like CMUs or tiles or other pavers that have more porosity, that may only be the first couple of months it'll capture CO2, and then it really minimizes past that. So you can kind of think about it as a sponge. The amount of cement in there drives the amount of CO2 that can be captured because it's a reaction between the cement, CaptureCrete, and then the CO2 from the air. Once we have that carbonation occur throughout the whole concrete or as far down as it'll go, we're eventually going to hit a wall where the sponge is full, or we've created an impenetrable barrier so no more CO2 can actually penetrate into the concrete. So majority is really on a time scale pretty quick. And now concrete effectively will mineralize and capture CO2 over its service life in just very little after the first initial kind of after post cure and for the first year, first couple of years, whatever the case is. So It happens pretty quickly, which helps us to create a financial return for the customer, within that first calendar year, which is helpful for everyone.
Interesting. Yeah, and I was going to ask if technology will improve that, but I think it's a physical thing. Like you don't have more space; it's like a sponge, right? Or do you foresee there is going to be some weird technology in the future that is going to allow this?
I always err to the option of weird technologies in the future doing stuff. So, so there's a good chance that this could certainly change. We're always testing, so we always think of it, and we don't want to be an R&D company that's perpetually in R&D. But as we come out with our Gen 1 or Gen 2, we're always working towards Gen 3, Gen 4. Do we have other materials in there that can function more like enhanced rock weathering, or with these different catalysts that can actually do something even better and do some increase the amount of carbon capture yield, because we're all about carbon accounting, like how much carbon can we reduce from concrete, because to your point, concrete's like almost 8% of global CO2 emissions, and even making a 10% impact is almost 1% of global CO2 emissions. Like, by making a relatively, on the scale of things, a relatively small impact, it's such a big industry that even a mediocre solution with mass adoption can really make a positive impact globally. And that's what's exciting for us.
Oh, absolutely. It's a problem that is so huge that any percentage counts. It's a huge, but nobody is doing much, right? So, um, so yeah, no, absolutely. And then regarding CoolCrete, what's the catch with it? Like, what
Yeah,
where
I'm
should I?
so excited about
Yeah,
CoolCrete.
can you explain us a little bit before I start asking mean
Sure.
questions?
Yeah, no, I welcome all questions. Uh, so CoolCrete, I'm really excited about. And I actually uh, was even thinking about it in my days where I was developing the coding technologies, and I started to see technologies coming out from universities mostly, and some commercial too, where they're using like different coatings that would help create solar reflectance, thermal emittance, and then also SRI, increase the SRI into rooftops and other things which help lower the urban heat island effect. So when I started to dig into developing CoolCrete, the thought was, hey, concrete's everywhere. Like, it's literally the foundation of modern society, and it's getting hotter. And our days, as it's hotter, are getting more dangerous for the public. And as we urbanize more areas, there's just more concrete everywhere. What if we can put an additive into the concrete that's there, or on top of the concrete that's there, or into the new concrete that's about to be developed, or sidewalks or roads, that actually reflects back heat, doesn't absorb as much heat, and then lowers the temperatures, actually giving it a cooling effect. So CoolCrete, when used into concrete, whether it's a road, pavement, a rooftop paver, can actually reflect back more heat than it absorbs. And traditional concrete and asphalt absorb heat. And then what happens is it creates this heat island effect. So everything around it could be 10, 15, 20 degrees hotter. And on a rooftop, it could be even hotter than that. But the problem with that is that it's dangerous for society to be in. If it's already 100 degrees outside and you add another 15, 20 degrees, that could be dangerous for your health. It's very uncomfortable. But even on top of that, when you have a building that has these darker colored, concrete stucco, concrete tiles or pavers, or even building envelope with stucco, that heat that's absorbed radiates into the house, into the building, and increases the amount of time your air conditioner has to turn on because it's battling the heat inside your house. When you're using CoolCrete into concrete, it's reflecting more heat, reflecting more sunlight, and you're lowering the temperature in a house. The number is about every 1 degree Celsius, you can lower the temperature in your home from, like, you know, heat coming in from radiating and absorbing heat from the sun. If you can reduce 1 degree Celsius, you could save about 3 to 5% of your electricity for cooling. And we've seen with our technology, you can reduce 6 degrees and even more Celsius. That imputes, up to a 30% and maybe even more and just some of our initial products, which still have room for improvement. But you're talking about reducing electricity for cooling up to 30%. You and I both live in South Florida, so we know what it's like to be hot, and we use air conditioner all year around, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I've never turned my air conditioner off.
Oh, no, man.
So yeah,
Maybe it's not because of the heat; it's because of the humidity. So yeah,
it's exactly. You never turn it off, and it's for both for sure. Yeah, even if it's cooler outside, the humidity is uncomfortable, so you still need it on to combat that. But if you could save even 10% of your electricity, and then thinking about commercial buildings and data centers, that's where I get really excited because putting this into precast walls, stucco, rooftop pavers, and roof coatings, things like that, you can make a really big impact. There's new statistics out that from AI, our data centers are effectively going to utilize about 2% of global electricity. That's again a really big number. And if we can reduce 30%, 40% of most of what that energy draws for cooling, right, into the data centers, if we can reduce that 10, 20, 30%, 40%, that's a huge impact globally, again, just on data centers, just on kind of one thing. So our CoolCrete effectively is a cement replacement again. So it's another material that we can provide to a ready mix producer or a precast company that makes rooftop tiles or pavers. We have already our first licensees and customers for this. And they add this to their, already produced products or ready mix that they're already using, and it actually creates that cooling effect. So it's something unique that we can provide to customers. They can give it to their customers and say, hey, look, you may pay 10% more for this, rooftop tile, but over the first year, it'll pay itself back because you save money for your electricity. And then concrete lasts a pretty long time. So you're going to continue to get that ROI. Plus, you'll live more comfortably because the outside area is not going to be as hot. We're mitigating urban heat island effect. And then there's a lot of new requirements for cool roofs in a bunch of states in the US. And there's starting to be requirements, and I think there's one or two states already, for cool walls, where you actually have to quantify like a minimum SRI score, which is the solar reflex index score, to actually use those materials on a new development or on a new building or on a new project. So these are actually going to become necessities. And right now, the reason why this is unique is that it's a cement-based concrete product versus a coating that degrades over the first few years, and you have to either rip it off and reapply it or just keep reapplying it, and that becomes expensive. And then you don't have cooling efficiency that lasts a long time. Maybe you get really good cooling for the first year, and then you lose 50% of that cooling efficacy because that product is starting to degrade from the heat. And it can also extend the shelf life, service life of concrete. So it's something I'm really excited about, and we just recently launched it and just got it into the commercial market. So just excited for all the opportunities and all the use cases that we can put it in.
interesting. And I'm just this is a mean question, but I'm curious. Let's say because I'm a cheap person and I want to pay for CoolCrete and I want to paint my house white because I'm dumb and I don't understand the benefits of CoolCrete. What would you say to that person? Like, what are the big differentiators of me painting it white and not absorbing as much heat than using CoolCrete?
So we're actually working on a product now which would effectively it would make the exterior stucco more expensive. But what if you could just put a stucco on the outside of your house? That would be cheaper than putting the stucco already that you'd have to put plus painting it. So you actually save money, and you'll save money on electricity. So thinking of that, because absolutely everyone sees dollars and cents, and some people don't care about saving money tomorrow. They want to save money today. So we're thinking of ways of, okay, well, how can we actually make it that way? And some of those avenues are, okay, well, what if we could put a coating or stucco or mortar or something around where it doesn't need to be painted? Then you actually never need to paint, and there's a little self-cleaning element and property inside this material too, so actually you can keep the walls cleaner. So I think there is ways around it. And again, another avenue for us is thinking about carbon credits. If we're replacing cement the more CO2 intensive part, can we offset some of those material costs? And those are the things that we're working on. So, I think as we continue to optimize and work with different partners, we might be able to get to some cost neutrality or a really small green premium, and hopefully we can, have customers and engage and invest in something that's slightly more expensive for a payback that's going to happen over a short period of time and then continue on. So yeah, it's certainly, there's certainly definitely market for both. It's a market that never wants to pay a premium and always wants to buy the cheapest thing. Someone that wants to buy the middle price product, and someone that wants to always buy the most expensive. So, and that's also, how I think it's a really good fit into more the product market for precast products versus ready mix, which is more commodity. Everyone looks at ready mix and it's like, well, that cubic yard of ready mix cost almost the same as that cubic yard. I'll take the one that's 2 pennies cheaper. That then it becomes more of a commodity than it does, hey, this product is, this price, and this price. So.
No, it makes sense. And the good thing is, like, you're never going to get bored because, I mean, there are so many products that you can create based on just the 2 products you already have.
Yeah.
That there is so much to do in our industry that I know it's a blessing in disguise, but it's a reality. Like, there is so much you can do that I'm excited to see your products everywhere. Like even routes, man. Like they create so much heat, and it's so dumb that they work the way they work, and it's just insane. And things are getting hotter and hotter in our world. So it's gonna be a must. It's gonna be a must in the coming years, I bet.
Well, look, it just made me think of, I was researching not too long ago, maybe a couple of months ago, how, like, have you heard of coolcations?
Oh,
No?
okay.
So, coolcations. So this is a new thing because places like Barcelona and Italy and other places in the summertime were generally the go-to places, but it's getting so hot that people are going to take coolcations. So you're talking about going to like the Nordic region, going to like Copenhagen and places where it doesn't get as hot. But I even know people there, and I talk to them, and in the middle of summer, they're like, look, we don't have AC. It's starting to get hotter here, and it's starting to get really uncomfortable. So places that didn't have heat problems before, and God forbid, I think back 50 years ago, people didn't have, not everyone had AC air conditioners in South Florida. And I guess it was tolerable with a fan, but now, I mean, I don't think you can do that. But just thinking about like how things are changing, even to help ensure that you keep, visitors coming to, to come be tourists in your locations where you're good travel locations, but it gets hot and it's tropical, which is why even in South Florida, where I am up in Boca, every year, every couple of years, they actually dredge the sand out from the ocean to spit it back on the shore because the sand keeps on pulling in. And if you have these beautiful beaches that you can't actually go to, no one's going to come down here. So you always have to think about how does that impact local economies too. So these are solutions for that also, if you really think about it on a kind of on a micro and macro scale.
No, absolutely. But it's I've never heard of the concept that it makes so much sense. Like
I don't think I don't want to take a coolcation. I don't want that,
No.
but people do.
No,
I like
not
my
that guy.
tropical.
Yeah.
No. That's why we live down here, right?
Yes, absolutely. The previous place I used to live was Vegas. So imagine
Okay, so hot.
I love heat. Yeah, I love heat. Like that's my thing.
Yeah. Now you just have water next to your sand as opposed to just sand next to your sand.
Much better. So much better. Yeah. Less casinos, less parties.
Yeah.
Much.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, this has been great. I know you're a busy guy, so I don't want to take more of your time. But before we wrap this up, can I ask you a couple of ping pong questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So can you tell me the next big trend in DAC?
I think it's going to be urban heat island effect mitigation. I think it's going to be cooling. I do.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
If you could collaborate with any person in history, which person would you choose?
Nikola Tesla.
Yeah. That's my favorite too. It's insane.
Yeah.
Outside the AC, do you have any hobbies or activities you have passion for?
I I love the beach and everything to do with the beach. So, whether it's paddleboarding, surfing, which I could do back in California where I'm from, and then just being in nature, my favorite things.
I was going to ask, where do you surf in Florida? Because like,
You could go to New Smyrna Beach, but I think it's full of sharks. Don't quote me, I don't know well, but that's supposed to be like the best place and it's kind of it's kind of up by Cocoa Beach, but it's not close. So, and I don't think I would drive 3 hours or so, or whatever, to surf, at least here, because it's not the same.
yeah, no, it's not the same. California,
No.
it's beautiful for that. And
Yeah.
then, last but not least, what's your favorite building in the world, and have you ever visited?
Uh, right now, what came to mind right away was Burj Khalifa, because I have visited it and because I went through the tour and understood the engineering feat required for it. And it's three buildings put together. They pumped concrete all the way up to about 145 or 46 floors. And that was the theoretical gravitational limit that they could actually pump concrete. And they had to put a big, I think, metal spire or something for the next 15 stories. And I went up to the 145th floor and saw the observation deck at night with the sun, with the moon in the distance, and then also during the day, and saw all that was in Dubai. It was pretty magical. It was really cool. It was very unique.
Insane. Yeah, the
Yep.
engineering of that is insane.
Super cool.
They're trying to do one that it's going to be
The sphere, or the spire.
That's the one that's going to be
Yeah.
2
1 kilometer tall.
Oh,
1 kilometer tall.
But, I mean, I'm just excited. I don't know. I get excited for those kind of things. If they can make it, it's going to be insane.
It's going to be insane. We won a sustainability competition with the Mar, and Mar is the developer it's the King's development company, the King of Dubai. It's his development company that developed Burj Khalifa and most of the other big buildings there. We went to their offices and they showed us the, kind of like the scale drawing, the scale, like city of what they were building around the spire. And they had these like 70, 80-story buildings. And then the spire just went like this. I was like, oh my God, the scale of it was crazy. I was like, wow, you're talking about like some of the tallest buildings in the world around this thing that looked like they were like peanuts. I was like, this is going to be nuts.
Yeah.
So that was really cool to see. So seeing it on a scale basis, it was even more impressive, but we'll see what they come up with next.
We'll see. And before we say goodbye to each other, can you tell everybody where you can know more about Carbon Limit and contact you as well?
Sure. Yeah. Check us out at carbonlimit.com. And then I'm really only somewhat active on LinkedIn. Same with Carbon Limit, as most of our stuff goes to LinkedIn there. So check us out there. Always happy to connect. Tim Sperry at Carbon Limit. And my email is tim@carbonlimit.com. If anyone wants to collaborate, do some projects together. We actually were part of the Risk and Resilience Tech Hub here in South Florida, which is based in Miami. And we were actually awarded a big grant with the EDA last year to do these pilot projects with University of Miami, with FIU, with Titan America, and with other local, either project partners or even potential collaborators. So always looking to collaborate with folks for projects here or anywhere else around the States.
All right. Thanks so much for your time. Team, it was super exciting, and what you guys are doing is amazing. So I hope you succeed and keep adding more of your amazing products to buildings around the world. All right.
Thank you so much. Well, thanks for having us on. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks so much, and hope you have a great day. All right.
You too. All right.
Bye.
Thanks to our listeners. If you like this content, you can find past and upcoming episodes in ascworks.everse.com and at all of our Everse social media. We'd love to hear from you and recommendations for new content, so leave us a DM and we'll make sure to catch it.